Ethan Williams, a man in his early 30s, stands by the window, staring out into the night. He's a high school teacher, a job that once gave him purpose and fulfillment, but lately he's been questioning everything about his life. Beside him, in a crib, lies Liam, his newborn son. The child's presence should have filled Ethan with joy, but instead, a dull ache settled deep in his chest. Ethan's marriage to Olivia had seemed like a dream come true at first. She was everything he could have asked for: smart, caring, and beautiful, a nurse with a heart as big as her ambition. Their life together had been what most people would envy: a stable home, a promising future, and now a child to complete their family. But over time, something changed. Olivia grew distant. The affectionate woman he once knew became cold, withdrawn, and worst of all, indifferent. For months, Ethan couldn't put his finger on it. Was it the stress of being a new mother? Was it the long hours she spent at the hospital? Or had the spark between them simply faded? He tried to bury his discomfort by focusing on his job and the small writing projects he kept as an outlet for his own thoughts, but nothing could fill the void. And then, there was Cody Parker, his best friend, his first love, and the ghost that haunted every corner of Ethan's heart. Cody had been a part of Ethan's life since high school, someone who had understood him in a way no one else had. They had shared everything, including a love that neither of them had dared to fully acknowledge. When Cody moved away for an art job, Ethan let go, or so he thought. But the truth was, Cody had never really left him. As Ethan stood there, staring at Liam's sleeping face, his thoughts drifted to Cody, to the love that had never been given the chance to bloom. He wondered if that unspoken bond was the reason his relationship with Olivia felt so strained. He shook his head, trying to focus on the present. After all, he had a family now, a future to protect. But the past, especially Cody, seemed to have a way of never truly disappearing. It's the late 90s. Ethan and Cody are in high school. They're inseparable, two sides of the same coin, navigating the tumult of adolescence with an unspoken understanding. Ethan had always known there was something special about their bond, but it wasn't until they spent a quiet evening by the lake one summer that he fully realized the depth of his feelings for Cody. They were just friends, or so everyone thought. But to Ethan, Cody was much more than that. Cody had a way of making Ethan feel seen, understood, as if all the chaos of the world didn't matter when they were together. Late nights spent talking about everything and nothing, sharing dreams, secrets, and fears. Their friendship was built on a foundation of trust, but beneath the surface, there was something more. Ethan couldn't ignore it. He had fallen for Cody, deeply and irrevocably. But Cody was a free spirit, someone who couldn't be tied down to one place, one person. He was offered a chance to move to the city to pursue his dream of being an artist, and the decision was made. He had to go, leaving behind a small town full of memories, including Ethan. The night before Cody left, they sat in the park, the same park where they had spent so many nights together, just talking, laughing, and being. Ethan looked at Cody, unsure of how to put his feelings into words. "I love you, Cody," he said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. Cody turned to him, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched between them before he replied, "I know," and just like that, everything changed. Cody was leaving. They didn't talk about what they felt; they didn't need to. But that night, something shifted. It wasn't just goodbye, it was a farewell to everything they could have been. Cody left the next morning and Ethan stayed behind. He tried to move on, tried to bury his feelings, but nothing could replace the connection he had with Cody. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the ache in his chest, the longing for something that was never truly given a chance to exist. Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, a half-empty cup of coffee in front of him. Olivia, his wife, sits across from him, her eyes tired, but not from exhaustion, more from something deeper, something unspoken. She's staring at her phone, scrolling absent-mindedly. Ethan's heart sinks as he watches her, realizing that the connection they once shared is no longer there. Olivia's absence wasn't just physical. It wasn't just the long hours at the hospital or the fact that she was now a mother. There was something else, a coldness between them that Ethan couldn't explain. They rarely talked anymore, and when they did, the conversations felt forced, mechanical. He missed her laughter, the way her eyes used to light up when she talked about her day, or when she looked at him with affection. Now it felt like they were just roommates, coexisting in the same space but living separate lives. Ethan tried to focus on the positives on their newborn son, Liam, who had just come into the world, bringing with him the promise of a new chapter. But even Liam's tiny hand grasping his finger couldn't erase the growing emptiness inside him. Every time he held his son, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, that he was supposed to feel differently, but he didn't. The weight of the situation started to press down on him. He had once believed that this life with Olivia was everything he wanted, but now it felt like he was pretending to be happy, trying to convince himself that the love they shared could still be reignited. What happened to the man he used to be? The one who was passionate, alive with dreams, and full of hope. Now, he was just going through the motions, and his thoughts always seemed to drift back to Cody, to the one person who had truly seen him for who he was. Ethan had pushed the memories of Cody deep down, thinking that time and maturity had made him forget. But the reality was, Cody had never really left him. And now, with the growing tension between him and Olivia, those feelings were resurfacing, like waves crashing against the shore, impossible to ignore. As Ethan glanced at Olivia, he realized how far they had drifted. He wanted to fix it, to reach out to her, but every attempt felt like a chore, a futile exercise in trying to revive something that might be beyond saving. Maybe it wasn't just the distance between them, maybe it was the weight of the past, of the love that he never let go of, the love he had for Cody. The turning point in Ethan's life came one cold evening at the hospital, where Olivia had been recovering after giving birth to Liam. Ethan arrived, eager to see his wife and their son, but the moment he stepped into the room, he felt an unfamiliar chill. Olivia looked up at him, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed as though she had been crying. The baby, Liam, was quietly sleeping in the bassinet next to her, but something in the air felt off. Ethan, Olivia's voice broke the silence, trembling with something more than just exhaustion. "I need to tell you something." Her hands gripped the sides of the hospital bed as she looked at him, her gaze unwavering, almost too calm for the storm she was about to unleash. "I had an affair," Olivia said, the words so blunt and cold that they cut through Ethan like a blade. For a moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. He thought he had misunderstood. He had seen the signs. Yes, Olivia's distant behavior, her lack of interest in their intimacy, her strange mood swings. But to hear her say it out loud was like hearing his entire world collapse. What Ethan managed to choke out, his mind racing, trying to process what she was saying. Olivia's eyes avoided his for a moment before she continued, each word digging deeper into the wound. "It was with James Thornton. He's a pediatrician at the hospital. It happened when things between us weren't ... good. You've been distant, Ethan. You were always lost in your own thoughts, in your past, and I needed someone to talk to. It was just ... comfort. It was just a mistake." Ethan's chest tightened as the words hit him like a ton of bricks. The betrayal was so sharp, so unexpected. He had been trying so hard to hold everything together, to be the husband and father that Olivia needed, but in the end, it wasn't enough. Olivia hadn't just distanced herself emotionally, she had gone outside their marriage, outside of their home, to find solace in someone else's arms. She went on to explain the details of their affair, the late-night meetings, the whispered phone calls, and the guilt that had grown heavier over time. But all Ethan could hear was the crushing weight of her words. He had trusted her. He had loved her. And now, that love felt like a cruel joke. "What about us, Olivia? What about our family?" Ethan's voice cracked as the reality set in. Olivia's expression softened for a brief moment, but there was no remorse. "I'm not leaving, Ethan. I'm keeping the baby. I'll go home with Liam. And if you try to divorce me, I'll make sure you regret it. You'll pay alimony and child support, and I'll take Liam with me. You can't just walk away from this." Ethan's world shattered. She was holding all the cards now. Not only had she betrayed him, but now she was threatening his future, his relationship with his son. He had no idea how he would move forward, how he could ever look at her the same way again. Yet something in her words struck a chord within him. Was this his future now? Trapped in a loveless marriage, stuck with a betrayal that would follow him forever? The uncertainty weighed heavily on him as he left the hospital room that night, his mind racing, unsure of what to do next. The days after Olivia's confession were a blur. Ethan found himself drowning in a sea of emotions: grief, anger, confusion, each one pulling him in a different direction. He would wake up in the morning, the first thought in his mind being Cody. He still couldn't shake the memories, the feeling that the love he had for his best friend had never truly gone away. But now, with Olivia's betrayal hanging over him, it felt impossible to reconcile the love for Cody with the broken marriage he had left behind. Every time Ethan looked at Liam, his heart ached with a profound sense of responsibility. He loved his son more than anything, but his mind kept drifting back to the unresolved, messy emotions he carried for Cody. In the quiet moments when the house was still and the weight of his thoughts pressed down on him, he would replay the memories of Cody over and over. Their late-night talks, their secret touches, the gentle, unspoken connection that had always been there, even if neither of them had fully acknowledged it. But now Ethan was left to face the brutal truth. Olivia had committed the ultimate betrayal. The affair with James Thornton had broken something inside of him that he wasn't sure could ever be fixed. The thought of living with Olivia, staying in a relationship built on lies and deceit, felt suffocating. Yet, at the same time, the thought of leaving her and walking away from Liam terrified him. How could he abandon his son? How could he navigate the chaos of this marriage, knowing that his wife had been unfaithful and, worse, was now threatening to take everything from him? Ethan spent countless nights walking around the house, unable to sleep, his thoughts racing. He replayed every moment of their marriage, every word, every look, every mistake. It felt like a relentless cycle, each one feeding into the other, until he didn't know what was real anymore. He was lost in the uncertainty of what came next, torn between the life he had built and the life that could have been. His therapist had suggested he focus on what was in front of him: Liam, his son. But Ethan couldn't help but wonder if it was too late to fix things. Was it possible to rebuild a marriage that had been shattered by betrayal? Or had the love between him and Olivia already died? Ethan sat at the kitchen table once again, this time with an unsettling calm that didn't match the storm raging in his mind. Olivia entered the room with her usual detachment, as though nothing had changed. She was still the same woman he had married, the woman he had once loved deeply, but the person before him now was a stranger. Someone capable of betraying him in the most heart-wrenching way. Ethan, Olivia started, her voice smooth and calculated. "We need to talk about the future." The words felt like a knife twisting in his gut. What could she possibly want now? "What do you mean, the future?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady, though the weight of the situation pressed heavily on him. "You've already told me everything, Olivia. You've made your choice." Olivia's eyes narrowed slightly, but there was no remorse in them. "It's not just about what happened, Ethan. You and I both know that. We're parents now. You have a responsibility to Liam, and I expect you to fulfill it. I'm not going to let you walk away from that. You'll pay child support, and if you try to take this any further, I will make sure you're financially tied to me for the rest of your life." "Divorce? It's not happening, Ethan. Not unless I say it is." Ethan's heart dropped. He had expected something, maybe an apology, some semblance of regret for the affair, but this was not what he had imagined. Olivia wasn't asking for reconciliation. She wasn't offering a path forward together. She was making it clear that she would control everything, that she would hold all the cards. She was using their son as leverage, as a way to trap him in a life he no longer wanted. Her words cut through him. He had spent years working hard to build a future with Olivia, and now, everything he had worked for seemed to be slipping away. How could he fight for a future with her when she had already made it clear she would never love him again? How could he build a life for Liam when the foundation of his marriage had crumbled beneath his feet? Ethan felt the weight of her ultimatum bearing down on him. Olivia had set the terms: stay in the marriage, stay in the life they had built, and accept the consequences of her infidelity, or leave, face a bitter legal battle, and risk losing everything. It felt impossible to make a decision. Ethan had never felt so powerless, so trapped. There was no easy path forward. Either way, he would lose. His heart was in pieces, his mind a maze of guilt, anger, and confusion. He had no idea what his future held, but one thing was certain: his life had changed forever. As Ethan sat there, staring at Olivia, a cold realization settled in. He had no choice but to fight. He couldn't let her win. He couldn't let this be the end of his story. But at what cost? How much of himself would he have to sacrifice in order to rebuild, to find peace? And was that even possible anymore? The tension in Ethan's life reached a boiling point when he received an unexpected message from Cody Parker, his best friend from high school, the one person he had never fully let go of, despite the years of separation. The message was simple: "Can we talk?" At first, Ethan wasn't sure if he should respond. After all, what had Cody really been to him? A friend? A love that never had its chance? He couldn't shake the feeling that Cody had always been the one person who truly understood him. The years apart hadn't dimmed that connection. Ethan hesitated for a moment, his heart racing, before he finally typed a response. "Sure, let's meet." They agreed to meet at a small cafe, one they had frequented back in their high school days, a place where memories flooded Ethan's mind, memories of stolen glances, whispered secrets, and a love that never quite materialized. Ethan arrived early, his palms sweaty, unsure of what he was about to face. As he sat at the table, he couldn't help but think about everything that had transpired in his life since Cody had left. His marriage to Olivia, the birth of his son, and now, the betrayal that had left him feeling empty. When Cody arrived, Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't seen him in years, but the moment Cody sat down across from him, the connection between them was as strong as ever. Cody had changed. Of course, he was now a successful photographer living in the city. His once wild hair now neatly trimmed, but his eyes were still the same. There was a familiarity there that Ethan couldn't ignore. "Ethan," Cody began, his voice low and serious, "I know this might be unexpected. I heard about everything about you and Olivia. I know how much you've been struggling." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He had no idea how Cody knew about his personal life, but it didn't matter. It felt like the weight of everything had finally caught up with him, and the person who had always understood him was here, sitting right in front of him. "I'm sorry to hear about what happened with her," Cody continued, his voice filled with genuine sympathy. "I never meant to complicate things between us. But Ethan, you need to know something. I've always cared about you, more than I should have. I never stopped thinking about you, even when I was far away." The confession hit Ethan like a freight train. His chest tightened as emotions, long buried, began to resurface. Was it too late? Could they ever be more than just friends? Could Cody ever be the escape he needed from the suffocating reality of his marriage? Ethan swallowed hard, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The pain of his marriage, the betrayal by Olivia, and the overwhelming desire to be with Cody, to let go of the past and finally embrace what he had always wanted, consumed him. But could he risk everything? His family, his son, his future, for a love that had been unspoken for so long? Cody reached across the table, his hand resting gently on Ethan's. "Whatever you choose, I'll be here, Ethan. I always have been." It was the moment that finally broke Ethan. All the unresolved feelings, the dreams he had suppressed for years, came crashing down around him. He was caught between two worlds: the life he had built with Olivia and the life he had always dreamed of with Cody, and neither felt whole. After his conversation with Cody, Ethan was left in a haze of confusion and longing. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly seen, understood, and wanted. But with those feelings came a crushing realization: he had a family now. He had Liam, a child who deserved a father, someone who could provide him with stability, love, and protection. Ethan couldn't turn his back on that, could he? Days passed, and Ethan's internal conflict deepened. He spent hours walking alone, replaying the conversation with Cody over and over in his head. He remembered how Cody's touch had sent a jolt of warmth through him, how his words had made Ethan believe that perhaps, just maybe, there was a way to have the life he always wanted. But then there was Olivia, the woman who had once been his everything, who had now betrayed him in the most profound way. She was threatening him, trapping him with legal consequences if he tried to leave. Ethan had a choice: stay in a loveless marriage, co-parenting Liam while enduring the bitterness of betrayal, or step away from everything he had ever known to chase a love that was, at best, uncertain. He spent another night lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Olivia was asleep beside him, her soft breathing the only sound in the room. Ethan turned to her, his mind torn between his past and his future. He thought about Liam, about the joy and the fear that fatherhood brought him. He thought about Cody, his love, his first love, the one person who could make him feel alive again. But he also thought about the reality of his choices. Could he truly leave his family behind? Was it even fair to ask for that? The following day, he decided to take the first step. He called a lawyer, seeking advice on his options. But before he could make any drastic decisions, he knew he had to confront Olivia. He couldn't keep living in a state of limbo. It was time to face her and take control of his own future, whatever that future might look like. "Olivia," he said, his voice steady but filled with resolve, "I need to talk to you." Her eyes immediately hardened, sensing the shift in his tone. "What now, Ethan?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I can't live like this anymore. I can't pretend everything is fine when it's not. I need to make a decision about us, about Liam, about my future. And I'm not going to stay in this marriage if it means living a lie." Olivia's face twisted in anger, but Ethan could see the fear behind her eyes. She knew that the facade was crumbling. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt like he was finally making a choice for himself, a choice that wasn't dictated by the expectations of others or the pain of his past. He was taking control, and whether it meant staying with Olivia, leaving her, or trying to build something with Cody, at least for now, Ethan was no longer afraid to choose his own path. Just when Ethan thought he had finally made up his mind, something unexpected happened. He had planned to confront Olivia about their future, to lay everything on the table. But when he sat across from her, prepared for the confrontation, Olivia dropped a bombshell that completely shifted the direction of his thoughts. "I know what you're planning," Ethan, Olivia said, her voice unnervingly calm. "You think you can just walk away from me and our family, but there's something you don't know." Ethan's stomach churned as he leaned forward, trying to process her words. "What are you talking about?" Olivia's gaze hardened as she slowly reached into her bag and pulled out a file. "This," she said, slapping it down on the table. "This is the paperwork for Liam's custody. I've already spoken to my lawyer, and I'll fight you for full custody if you try to leave me. If you want to go off and chase some fantasy with Cody, be my guest. But you'll never see your son again." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. His heart began to race as he stared at the file. It wasn't just a threat, it was a plan. Olivia had anticipated his move, and she had already prepared for the worst-case scenario. Ethan knew that Olivia wasn't just holding the legal leverage over him, she was using Liam, the child he loved more than anything, as a weapon. Her eyes locked with his, cold and calculating. "You think I'd just let you walk away after everything? After what you've done to me," she continued. "I've been a good wife, I've supported you, I've sacrificed for you, and now you're going to leave me for? Him? For someone from your past?" Ethan felt a mix of guilt and fury bubble inside him. He never thought it would come to this, his love for Cody being used against him, his entire future held hostage by Olivia's power plays. The weight of his decision suddenly seemed unbearable. Was he ready to lose everything for a chance at happiness? Could he walk away from Liam, the one person who was truly his responsibility, just to pursue something that felt like it could be a fantasy? "I don't want to fight you," Olivia, Ethan said, his voice trembling despite his resolve. "I don't want to hurt you. But you can't keep me here, trapped in a marriage where we don't even speak to each other anymore." Olivia's eyes softened for a moment, but only for a second. You should have thought about that before you decided to destroy everything," she said, her voice steady but filled with bitterness. Ethan felt himself falling deeper into a pit of confusion and fear. He had thought he could walk away from this marriage, but Olivia's hold on him, her manipulative control, was stronger than he realized. How could he possibly leave her when she was so intent on ensuring he lost his son? The stakes were higher than he ever imagined. With Olivia's shocking ultimatum hanging over him, Ethan found himself at a crossroads. He couldn't shake the weight of what she had said, the idea that his entire future, his relationship with Liam, and even his own freedom were now tied to his decision. He couldn't afford to make a rash choice. For the first time, Ethan felt truly powerless. He had always been able to think his way out of situations, to find a solution to his problems. But this felt different. He wasn't just choosing between Olivia and Cody anymore. He was choosing between his son and his own happiness, and the two seemed so impossible to reconcile. In the following days, Ethan found himself spending long hours walking through the city, trying to clear his head. He visited the park where he and Cody used to hang out as kids, the place where they had shared their first kiss. The memories were like a flickering film reel in his mind, playing over and over. The love they shared, the years of longing, and the thought that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to make it work. But Ethan couldn't ignore the responsibility that tugged at his heart. Liam, his son, who was too young to understand what was happening, needed him. He was the one person who could never be replaced. Ethan had spent so many years yearning for a love that wasn't meant to be, that he had forgotten the love that was right in front of him. That night, Ethan sat down with Olivia one last time. He had made his decision. "I'm not going to fight you for custody of Liam, Olivia," he began, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "But I can't keep living like this. I'm not happy in this marriage anymore, and I won't pretend that I am. I'm leaving." Olivia's face contorted with rage. "You think you can just walk away from me and our son? You'll regret this, Ethan. You'll never see him again." Ethan's heart broke as he looked at her, but he couldn't back down now. "I'm not leaving Liam. I'm just leaving you. I'm going to fight for joint custody, and I'm going to be the father he deserves." Olivia's eyes burned with fury, but Ethan stood his ground. This wasn't about revenge or anger, it was about what was best for Liam and for himself. Ethan was done being manipulated. He couldn't stay in a marriage where love had died, and he couldn't ignore the fact that his true feelings for Cody had never truly faded. In the end, Ethan didn't have all the answers. He didn't know what the future held. But he knew one thing for certain: he had to choose himself for once. It was time to rebuild his life. It was time to break free of the cage he had built around himself. Thanks for watching. If you followed Ethan's emotional journey from the beginning, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring these powerful stories to life. Stay tuned for what happens next in Ethan's quest for freedom, love, and redemption.